Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Okay, I want to start today with just a quick reminder that I am a ambassador for Nerdy Nuts. They are this small batch peanut butter company that makes these delicious peanut butter treats. They have new drops every Sunday, and one of the reasons I'm bringing it up again, which I know I share it, the stuff's always down below, they ship all over the United States and they have like such tasty treats. This one is Susie's Apple Salad, which is a white chocolate peanut butter, caramel apple topping, vanilla frosting, apple bits, and Snicker pieces, and it is so good. And then there's ones like this, where this one is dark chocolate, raspberry truffle. And this one is more the consistency of like fudge, like no lie. It is thick. And so this one, I honestly just have a bite of it as like a treat, or I have had it with some apples. That was really good too. They're so good. But the drop that is happening this Saturday, or this Sunday, is going to have some Harry Potter flavors. And one of them is called the Sorting Hat, and it will have different color sprinkles that will like put you in a house, which I think is so cute. So, just wanted to share that with you guys again. You get 10% off if you use the Book Refuge, and they're just a really fun snack. It's a small business to support. All right, and then before we get started on the books, I have 4 new patrons to welcome to the channel. So we have Lex, Hannah, Helen, and Missy. They all joined this last week. And guys, that really touches me so much that you have found my content and that you like it. Honestly, like last winter was pretty tight, pretty tough. And so I'm just trying to do all that I can to be prepared for the coming winter. So you can follow my Patreon whether you are supporting monetarily or not. I do some public posts, including when I offer annotated books, which the sale is actually happening today when I'm recording this, so it'll probably be over by the time you see this. But I plan to do them once or twice a month to just help with some extra stuff, right? And I offer some books that are annotated a la carte, and it's a good place to find out about that, as well as other things that are going on when we have random reading sprints pop up or stuff like that. So definitely follow my Patreon. Even if you can't support monetarily, it still supports me to see you following me there and wishing me well. So without further ado, now let's get into the books, because I think we have 10 or 11 to talk about today. I think it's 10. And boy, there was some interesting ones in here. So I know already that I'm going to talk a lot, so we got to get going. Although the first one was a reread, and this was for a patron. I reread Seduce Me at Sunrise by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 2 in the Hathaway series. This one is about Kev Merrypen, who has been living with the Hathaways since he was young. Their parents, when they were still alive, took him in. He had nowhere to go. He'd basically been left for dead by his people, and he has nowhere to go, and the Hathaways really take him in. So he not only like falls for them in like, he sees them as like his family, but he also falls for Wynn, who is one of the older sisters, who they just have this crazy connection. And he is obsessed with her, but he keeps it very, very well hidden because he doesn't believe that he can be right for her. He's like, she's too beautiful, she's too perfect, I can never be with her. And so time and time again, she pushes that she wants to be with him, and he deflects. So near the beginning of this novel, though, Wynn is going away to, does she go to Paris or France or, I can't remember where, but she needs to go away because she's been ill. She's basically been ill since there was an illness that her and her brother Leo and Leo's fiance, they all were sick. Leo's fiance had died, and she's never been quite well since then. And so she goes away to have some restorative care done. And when she's there, she meets the doctor who helps take care of her, and he actually comes back with Leo and Wynn, and he wants to marry her. And so now Kev really has to decide, is he going to make a move or let her be married to someone else? And Wynn is also like, this is your last shot. If you don't take it, then that's it. Because I'm not going to be alone and pining for you forever when I could be with someone who at least will care about me. So this was wonderful to revisit, even though Kev is so frustrating. Like, Lisa Kleypas can do this that not everybody can, where she can make you so annoyed with a character. And then just when you think you can't be any more annoyed, you like them. Something happens and you're like, oh, I like that. And she does that all the time for me. Okay, next up, we have the one. I have so much to say about this book, but I don't even know. Like, I've been trying to organize my thoughts for this, and I don't know. But anyway, Contempt by Sam Mariano came out. This is the third book in the Coastal Elite series. We've been anticipating this one for a long time, and she didn't even announce it, that the date it was coming out, until the week before. Like, we knew this book was coming. She'd already kind of told us what it would be about. If you read Undertow is kind of like a prologue to this. It's a prequel, if you will. She said, like, you can read Even If It Hurts on its own. You could read this, like, duet on its own. It's not officially a duet, but the first Undertow is about Landon and Parker's parents. So Parker's mom and Landon's dad, they get together in Undertow, and now they are living together, which is going to bring their kids to living together too, who are both seniors in high school. And Landon has been kind of a bully to Parker for many years now. And unbeknownst to her, it's because he's in love with her. And yeah, he's doing the shitty thing of, like, pick on the one you love. Like, there's something about that that's a little bit childish. But he also has been doing these things to keep everyone else away from her. He hasn't let her go on dates with anyone else. He hasn't, really even let her be alone with any boys at all. Like, he's made that happen through the years. And he always, like, wanted to really make his stamp. And so at first he's really pissed that his dad is getting with Parker's mom, because he's like, now I don't know if I could be with her because she could be my step-sibling. But number one, he doesn't care about that taboo. And it's kind of a thing of, like, I saw this one first, so you might be getting with her mom, but, like, she's mine. But also, when he realizes, like, oh, she's going to be living with us. She's going to be under my roof, and I will have access to her. That, turns out not to be such a bad thing. For him, anyway. Now, on Parker's side, her mom was really hesitant to move in with Hayden, Landon's dad, because she knows that Landon has been a bully to her. In fact, she has had confrontations with Hayden because of that, because she's like, you have let your son get this way. And it's true. Hayden was a bit of a neglectful father since his first wife died. And he hasn't always been paying attention. And so that, Landon was a young boy who lost his mother and lost her in a very, like, tragic way. And he did spiral. So this book, for me, there's a lot of similarities to other Sam Mariano books, and then there was a lot of differences. And one of the differences to me is that Landon is the most, like, normal boy that I've read in one of hers. Yes, there are still situations of, like, assault and non-con. We'll get into a couple of those. But it's more of, like, he is a messed up boy. Like, he has trauma. He has issues, and he's not handling them right. And, no one's taken this boy to therapy. No one's tried to, like, work it through with him. His dad has buried himself in work and just let him have money and let him do whatever. And yeah, it's bad, but it's the most, like, normal situation of stuff, right? Also, as I've said, what I loved about this, and what I was interested to see how it would play out, and I did like it, is that Parker's mom pays attention. Her and her daughter are close. This isn't a case of some of the other heroines by Sam Mariano where the mother is just, like, dating whoever and not paying attention to her daughter and is just an awful mom. No, she's a good mom, and that means that Parker is really trying to hide from her what she's going through, because she likes Hayden. She loves seeing her mom so happy, and so she doesn't want to be the reason her mom and her have to move out. So even though being with Landon is really like hard for her, or being around him is really hard for her, she's going to do whatever she can to not mess up. And Landon, he knows that that's what she wants to do. And he even tells her, he's like, you don't have much leverage against me because you're not going to tell on me. You're not going to stop this because you don't want them to break up. Now, what Landon doesn't know is that Hayden has told Parker, you tell me if he goes too far because I'll do something about it. And so Landon doesn't know that. He thinks he'll be able to hold whatever leverage over her that he can, do whatever he wants, and she'll still be there. So really what it becomes, and what this book about was for me, was the struggle of Parker to, is there still something redeemable about him? Does she want to see if she can make it work? Can she stick it out long enough to get through to Landon that things can work out for her mom and Hayden? And, you know, the variable is Landon, because he has some alcoholism as an issue. He is volatile. He is very jealous. He is always watching. So there was a lot in that aspect. Now, I loved how it slowly turned around. I loved that there wasn't a third act breakup in this. I loved how their sexual connection grew through the novel. This has a very like he's still trying to push her into situations in the beginning, but there's not like consummation of this relationship fully until like 60-70% in. And I think that was good. Again, he still pushes her into some things before then, but I just really liked how it grew. And I loved how Parker wasn't ready to give up on Landon, but it wasn't in that like unrealistic way. Like she has a line, and at times she'll be like, this is the line, Landon. And if you go too far past this, it's done, right? So that is kind of all I want to say okay, wait, there's one other part I'll say as non-spoiler, because then we're going to do a little bit of spoiler, because I promised that I would in some other videos. Also, this is like a continuation of some stories that were started in Even If It Hurts. In this one, Hannah is now pretty much the only friend that like Landon has, or not Landon, that Parker has, you know, and Hannah was the friend in Even If It Hurts. And if you read that one, like Dare basically like tells Hannah that she can't ever talk to Aubrey again. If she gets involved, then he's gonna mess up. Now in this one, Anae, who is the evil stepsister to Hannah, she's gotten out of the facility she was put in after the stuff that happened, and Even If It Hurts. So she's back at the house with Hannah, and she is still being a complete bitch to her. She's watching everything that Hannah does. She's stalking Dare's social medias, you know, what he's doing with Aubrey, and she is misinterpreting, or maybe interpreting correctly, things that Dare is doing. And so there are these little bits that we're seeing with that. And, you know, Parker, she doesn't know the full breadth of everything that had happened, right? Because it was before she lived there. But it still is like, it still is there percolating. And now I have joined the spoiler group for San Mariano. So again, I'll talk about some of this in the spoiler area. But that is something that's building, because the way that things are still going to go is next is the re-release of Surrender. So Sophie's Surrender was out, was it near the beginning of this year or last year? I can't remember, whatever. That was a co-authored book that Sam did with Laura Lovett, but it fits into this universe. So that's going to be book 4. She actually said it's supposed to come out anytime because it's been reworked a little bit and it will have more content that connects this world together. And she said by the end of that book and the bonus content, we'll know who Hannah's like love interest is, because we have no idea who it is for sure at this point. We don't know. There's a few hints in this one, but we don't know. And then after Surrender will be Devotion, which is the first of Hannah's books. We don't know how many she'll have. I think it's supposed to be 2, but there's going to be more than one that's about Hannah's story. Don't know what that means. So that's all that I'll say in the non-spoiler section. I really liked this book. Pop back in when the spoiler goes away to see like final thoughts and everything. Okay, so just a few spoilers because I do have a lot of books to get through today, and I am still contemplating doing a dedicated video to Coastal Elites. My plan is to wait for Surrender to be re-released, read that, and then put my full thoughts together there, because it's just, there's so many unknowns and I don't want to like speculate and then immediately be proved wrong, but it's fascinating. So some other like deeper things I really liked about this that are just about this couple. So I really liked how smart Parker was. She's not a doormat. She's playing a game with Landon in a lot of aspects. She's playing a game to see if he can be good again. Like, I don't know another way to say it, but Landon has been picking on Parker. Picking on is a very mild term, but he's had it out for Parker since his mother died and she did something nice for him. And he focused all of his like rage at losing his mother onto Parker, and that's part of the reason he's been obsessed with her. And in that, somehow he's fallen in love with her. So what I loved about Contempt as well is that this is a dual POV book, but it's very sparing with the Landon POVs. There's only a few in the whole like 50 chapters that there are. And whenever we get one of his, it kind of like clarifies his, you know, train of thought and how obsessed he is with her. But he is still just so volatile. As I said, he has some alcoholism going on. He does make dumber choices when he's drunk. What has really made Parker scared of him, because before she was just okay with him like kind of bullying her, and she did have a crush on him, so she was putting up with a lot, is he invited her to a party at one point, and this I think was in sophomore year, so 2 years ago, and he was drunk and he assaulted her. He like got her in a dark room and started feeling her up and assaulting her, and she got away, but she has been like scared of him since then because he wouldn't listen, he wouldn't stop. So he did that. And then the 2 years later in the summertime, when we read Undertow, is when he like broke into her house when Hayden and I can't remember her name, but the mom were on a date, and he broke into her house and was pounding on her door trying to get in. And this was when she called the cops on him, and things kind of went from there because she was honestly afraid of him. So now she's living in the house with him after these two events having happened. She still thinks he's good looking. She still kind of like likes him because this is this ingrained crush she's had. But now she knows that like he will go too far with stuff. So she is trying to avoid him at all costs. But Landon, he will do what he has to do to get her alone sometimes, you know. And yeah, so it's a game that she's playing. Now, a couple like spoiler things that I really liked about it. I liked how the third act played out. So I was loving this story. Absolutely. I just do. I love how Sam tells a story. Some people might think it's too long. Some people might be annoyed, but I didn't. And I thought Parker was very smart. But there was one stupid thing that she did, and it was making me really nervous. So there was this valet at the country club that the family goes to, and she'd been kind of flirting with this valet, and Landon noticed. Then there was a day that she went there with her friend, and he wasn't there. And she got his number. The valet gave her his number. And she knows that it's a stupid thing because Landon would so not let her be with him. And this is before they've even are officially together, so there's that. But she knows that he would go after this guy because he already had threatened to. So she has the number. And then, like, I think it's like later that night or the next day, she gets nervous about having the piece of paper or like the card around. So she digs through her bag, finds it, and puts the number in her phone. Number one, she puts it under the guy's name, which I was like, why are you being stupid? And then for the next, like, how much of the book, like, she's texting this guy. There's a little bit of flirting happening, but in general, nothing like super goes over the line. He does start wanting to ask her on a date, and she keeps putting it off. And then eventually she is like with Landon, and they have a fight. And she agrees to like go on the date with him. Now there's more to this than that. But I was like, number one, why did she keep the note? Like, I was annoyed that she did this. And I kept waiting for Landon to find out and then be pissed about it. And I was like, girl, he's going to do something so bad if he finds out that you did this, right? It's a controlling thing, but I mean, that's what we love about some stuff, right? Like, it's a super controlling thing. So I was waiting for this to blow up, okay? But here's the thing that happens. Two things. Number one, the reason that she finally like asks him for the date is because that valet, Hannah sees that valet making out with Anae at their house. And so she's like, did that guy still want to date with you? Because he's making out with Anae. And so she's like, he is? And so she texts him and says, hey, let's go on that date. So she texts him to see if he answers. And she gets an answer back where he's like, sure, what time? And Hannah's like, he ain't texting ya. He's got both hands on Anae. So she knows that it's not that guy that she's been texting. And as soon as this was happening, I was like, oh my God, no. And she doesn't actually have Landon's phone number at this point because they've only like DM'd through a different app sometimes. So she goes and asks Hayden like, hey, I don't actually have Landon's number. Can I have that? And so Hayden gives her Landon's number and it's the number. So she knows that somehow, and I won't fully explain that if you haven't, but somehow Landon switched those numbers and she's been texting him the whole time. Now, that's why he hadn't been like trying to peek at her phone. He'd been hoping she would tell him about it. So when she played that game of like, hey, let's go on a date, she was testing that guy. But Landon's the one who got it. And they had just had a fight. And so he's like, wow, the first time we have a big fight, she messages this guy. So he's spiraling. And I'm like, oh my God, no, this is it. This is going to be because there's still like 100 pages of the book left. So I'm like, he's going to do something horrible because that's what a volatile guy would do. So what does he do? They've been sleeping together, dating, and they've been keeping it a secret from their parents, AKA her mom. His dad's already figured it out. And he's like, just don't mess this up for me and your mom. Hayden is still a self-serving person sometimes. So anyway, you're expecting this huge blow up because, but she knows that it's him and he doesn't know that she knows that, but he's still like, wow, she was going to still see this guy. Not knowing that she wasn't actually wanting to do that. She was just trying to figure it out and they need to talk about it. But instead, there's family movie night about to happen at the house. So the parents are down there and she's down there and he comes bursting in and he's like, let's set something straight. And he kisses her in front of their parents. When I tell you I gasped because it completely subverted my expectations. He's been so volatile up to this point, but instead of blowing it up and possibly pushing her away from him, he takes away his own leverage. He takes away his own power that he has over her by kissing her in front of their parents because now it's not a secret. He can't later say like, oh, if you mess around, like your mom will find out and it'll blow everything up. That is some pressure that has been used on her before. And now he gives up his own leverage to have it out in the open. Because of course her mom freaks out, but now she's able to tell her mom, yeah, he really like has made it better. Because now we don't have to hide it and I don't feel the anxiety of being worried about you finding out. We can actually just like date each other and see how it goes. So I thought it was brilliant because I completely thought he was going to just fuck it all up and then we'd have to see a big grovel happen, which I would have been fine with. It's cool. But San Mariano's men don't always grovel. They'll do nice things and be nice for their sweetie when they want to, but they're not really grovelers. So I don't expect a grovel from a San Mariano hero. A lot of people might, but I don't. So anyway, that's enough talking about this one, but I liked how it played out. This book is getting slayed in the ratings on Goodreads. Like it was only at like a 3.4 or something. And I'm just kind of like, I get it. I just reread Untouchable recently and yeah, it's not untouchable. But again, if you read any posts that San Mariano has done, even if you don't go in the spoiler group, if you just go to her general reader group, she says, she's like, none of my men are going to be the same. And there was a note at the beginning of this one where she said, Dare is Dare. None of my other heroes are going to be like Dare, just like none of my other heroes are going to be Carter. So if you go into this book looking for one of those characters, you're not going to find it. And I actually find a lot of comfort in that because if there's ever a character of hers that I don't like, and Dare is, I don't care for him. He's not my vibe at all, but he is for a lot of people. You can know that the next book won't have that character, right? So anyway, I spent way too long on this, but I knew that I would. And I enjoyed it so much. I gave this 6 stars. It is like a 4.5 on the spice scale. It depends. There actually wasn't a ton of it in here, but when they have it, I mean, they have good dirty. It's good times. It's good time. There was some spanking and some dirty talk. There is also, as I said, non-con, dub-con, previous assault by the hero, which we usually don't love to see, but it is. He's the one who assaulted her. Alcohol abuse, you know, grief and death of a parent because his mom had died. But yeah, this one is, I mean, I don't know. I love it, but Sam Mariano is an author that it's always tough for me to recommend to people. Like, it's tough for me to recommend her to someone because she does push the boundaries. And even among, like, this type of story, like, I don't like other bully romances. I don't like a lot of scenarios that are in her book anywhere else but with her. But I love the mind games that her characters play, and that's what I felt from this. All right, moving along. We had a reread of Eyes of Silver, Eyes of Gold by Ellen O'Connell. I annotated this for a patron. This is my own special cover. You can't find this anywhere. My friend Mel did this as a gift to me because the regular cover of this book is hideous. Okay, it's hideous. The amount of people I've had to, like, cajole into reading this because this cover is hideous is far too many. But this was a 6-star book of mine, and someone asked for me to annotate it, and I sure did, and I loved it. This is about Cord and Annie is trying to escape from her father, who is trying to force her into a marriage with this old dude, and so she runs away, and at the beginning of this book, she finds herself in Cord's barn, and they know each other from childhood. He's a half Indian cowboy and rancher here, and he's a pariah of the town, of course, because people are racist bigots, and it's disgusting. Like, the biggest downfall of well, it's not the downfall of the book because it's the point of the story, but people are just awful in this book. It's really tough. But he is going to help her get away. But before they can even do that, her father and his men catch up to her, and they beat the ever-loving shit out of both of these people. They force them into this mock marriage, and they leave her with Cord's body, which they think he's dead. She thinks he's dead until she realizes he's still breathing. She is injured. She's been kicked in the stomach. She's been pinched and slapped, and he's been beaten to literally less than within an inch of his life. If she lays him on his back, he's choking on his own blood type of scenario. So what is Annie to do? She is weak. She doesn't know what to do. So she's able to drag him into the house. Can't even get him on the bed. She, like, has him on the ground, tends to his wounds. First, there is the other men work with her dad, try to come back because they know she's there alone. Well, they think she's there alone with his dead body, and they're going to rape her, and she is able to get Cord's gun, and she shoots at them. And then a couple days later, his brothers come because they've been told that he raped Annie. So all these lies have been told, and of course, they all believe them. So Annie then has to defend him against his own family to start. So these two, they have a rough start. But something very beautiful happens in the beginning that really sets it up for the rest of the story is that Annie has always tried to live proper. She's always tried to be a good girl, but it never got her anywhere because her father, she was never good enough for her father. He still tried to force her into things. And yeah, she was just never good enough for him. And this is what he does to her. Like, her own father does this. And it's horrible. So what good did all of her good intentions and good girl do for her? So while she's taking care of Cord and his animals, she finds a lot of peace there. And when he is getting better, he's like, do you want me to help you move on? And she's like, what if I stay? And they're like, what if this is real? And so they agree to make it be real. Now, Cord doesn't ever really believe she wants to stay forever, but he's willing to take every day that she stays with him. And there's a part in this I really love where she says to him, you know, one day when we're 90, you're going to have to admit that I wasn't going to go anywhere. But anyway, this book is gut-wrenching, y'all. It's very hard to read. As I said, there are some very racist, disturbed people in this book, so it is difficult to get through. But Cord, the way that he thinks about Annie is so precious. There's a part where after they've made love, he's like looking at her and he's like, she looks like a princess meant for a king. Oh, here we go. He says, it says, she made him feel like the king he was sure that she was born for. And I just love that. He sees her as a queen, as a princess, and that he just isn't deserving of her. And I just love it. And against the odds of everyone hating on them, everyone telling them they won't last, everyone just waiting for her to get sick of him and leave, she stays and proves them wrong. And they prove everybody wrong. And by the end of this book, like, they have the hardest one HA you've ever seen. The only downside of this book, like, honestly, and this was written a long time ago. I think this came out, not a long time ago, but I think this was, 2010. So it's pretty old for an indie romance, right? This was an indie romance. It doesn't have an epilogue, and that just devastates me. I think there's supposed to be like a little, like, I don't know. There's supposed to be a little story that's about one of his nephews, and I kind of want to read that because I think it will have, like maybe where Annie and Cord are now. Because if anyone deserves an epilogue where we see them romping around with their kids, it's Annie and Cord. So anyway, this is a 6-star book of mine. It was a reread. It's a 2 on the spice scale. Again, lots of trigger warnings for this. I mean, she's assaulted, she's beaten, there's injuries, there's seeing the tending of injuries, she's needing to sick bed, take care of him, and not the sexy kind, like it's painful. And then there is also the threat of a forced abortion at one point in this. So this is very heavy, but I'm telling you, the HEA is so worth it. All right, we got to keep moving. We're 30 minutes in already. Damn it. Okay, then I finally finished Soft Flannel Hank by Eliza MacArthur. This is a book that Big Sis read way back maybe it wasn't the beginning of it was like April or May or something like that. And she said that this was a Charlie Swan, like, fanfic, basically. It has, like, Twilight inspiration. And I was like, say no more. But when I started it, I just wasn't quite in the mood for that setting that it had. And I did not want to rush this book. So I just waited on it. And I finally went back to it. So this is about a witch named Esther. And then Hank, who is a retired policeman who lives in this small town in Washington. And Esther is on the run from some vampires. We'll just say it. She's on the run from some vampires. And so she's made it to this small town and she's staying there. And the beginning of this book, she's staying at a motel in town. And her and Hank, they have a one-night stand. And Hank, he is pretty depressed. He's been in therapy. Things have been tough on him. And he is actually friends with a vampire in town named Nathaniel. And so he knows of supernatural, but he doesn't know a ton of it. And he mostly knows of it because his daughter had dated a vampire and it went badly. In the version of this world, it went badly. So he knows a bit about it, but he's alone in this town now. And he has this one night stand with her and it's amazing. But then she's gone the next day and he has a big fear of, like, people leaving him. It's really tough for him, the amount of people who have just left him in his life. And to be falling for a woman who is on the run is going to be very difficult. So this is about their journey together and, like, trying to stop who's coming after her. And also, just Hank learning that he deserves love again. And Esther, finding a safe place to be. And yeah, I just loved it. I want there to be more explanation for some of the paranormal in this. There's going to be another book in this series. That couple is set up at the end of this one, and I can't wait to read it. It's supposed to come in, like, February and March next year, and I am ready for it, okay? The setup for it was great. But the thing that, like, Hank is he's this big, burly, soft in the middle, long-haired lumberjack vibes, and he's just so sweet. Like, there's not another thing to say it. He is a gentle giant. He is kind. He is long suffering, but he's been hurt a lot. And so he has so much love to give. But finding someone who will love him back the same and also, not leave him has been tough for him. And it's led him to be, I wouldn't say he's jaded because he still, like, reaches for love so eagerly, but he's been burned too many times. So I just wanted only the good things for him. So this book, I gave it 4.5 stars. Really where it slipped up a couple times is the heroine was so frustrating. Like, I know she was on the run, but to see her leave him, like, again and again, because she'll get scared and then she'll run and he's like, stop running, I'm here to help you. And then she'll run again and you're just like, stop doing that. So I couldn't give it, like, a full 5 stars because I loved Hank so much, but I was kind of pissed with Esther that I was like, I don't know if you deserve him. I don't know if you do. And I think Hank deserves the bestest. I think he deserves the bestest. But I highly recommend. This is going to be a perfect fall winter read. When I start making videos like that, this one's going to be the top of the list because it's absolutely, the vibes are there, as they say, but also the characters there too. And the intimacy in this book, even on the one night stand, is just so, it's so good. Okay, I love it. So it was a 4.5 stars, a 3 on the spice scale. And there isn't a ton of trigger warnings. There's a threat of danger, but you'll see when you read it, it's not too bad. Okay, then I read an arc of Some Winter's Evening by Erin Langston. I won't talk too long about this. This is about Gavin and Emily. So Gavin is the lawyer brother, the barrister, for the heroine in the first one. Her name just went out of my head. I'm so sorry. Nate and blank. I can't remember her name. But anyway, he's the one who was helping her like keep her kids basically. And it's Christmas time, and so he's supposed to go stay with the family for a couple weeks for Christmas. He has so much to do. He's up for kind of a promotion, but to get this promotion he might have to do something that's kind of against his morals. But he's like, but if I do this and I bend my morals here, then I'll be able to do this later on. So it's that, like, what is he willing to trade for it? So that's on his mind. Then he stops at an inn and he meets this woman named Emily, who she's on her way to accept a new governess job. She's a nursery governess, which is actually a very difficult role to have because you never get to keep the job for very long because the kids outgrow you very quickly. So she's never had much stability in her life. And these two, they almost have a one-night stand together. They don't quite do it, but they have a great connection. But then Gavin kind of backs out of it because he's like, I don't do this and I don't feel comfortable about, you know, sleeping with a woman only one time. And I'm like, good for him. But it does kind of like end it on a sour note a bit. But then who should show up at the dinner table the next day but both of them? So now it's a forced proximity and they're in this house over Christmas and they find opportunities to see each other. So I don't want to say any more than that. This was a good size novella. I felt very satisfied with the character movement we made in this. And I mean, if you loved Nate and the kids, you need to read this because there's one of the tropes is the Nate Travers dating agency matchmaking services. That is Nate, and it's adorable. And the little kids, I think they have the three of them yet. I don't know if she's had the 4th kid yet. That at the end of the book we know they have 4, but it's adorable. So definitely grab this one. It comes out November 1st, and please support an indie historical romance author, especially if you loved Forever Your Rogue. You'll like this. Okay, next up, I read a book that I was really nervous to read, but it was on my TBR, and I'm so glad I read it. So I read Mafia Captive by Kitty Thomas. If you don't know, Kitty Thomas is considered one of the authors who kind of spearheaded the like dark romance genre. Her books are from like the early 2010s. So this one was 2013. I think that her first one, Comfort Food, is 2010. And so she was kind of, you know, the author who, it's not that dark stuff wasn't happening. We all know historicals have that stuff all the time. But she was one of the authors who kind of spearheaded this. And Megan, one of my patrons and friends, she sent me 2 of Kitty Thomas's books. I've read a couple of them before. I read The Monster Keeps Me Safe, and I've read another one by her too. But she sent me a couple of her favorites. And I've heard Pam Godwin talk about her. I've heard other dark romance authors mention her because she was kind of an inspiration for a lot of it. And this book, boy, was it fascinating because it doesn't fit into even a traditional mafia romance we're used to. It doesn't have swoony, nice feelings in it, but it was fascinating. And there honestly was not much sex in this book at all, even though one of the main themes is BDSM. So it is hard to wrap my mind around this story. But this is about Faith Jacobson, and she sees a mob hit that she shouldn't see. And so she gets taken by the man who was doing the hit. He kidnaps her, and he gives her as a gift to his brother, Leo. So Leo is a dom, and he has had a few relationships with subs before, but he's been looking for a partner who could be like a slave, wants a master-slave relationship, and he's never been able to find someone that worked well. And then his brother is gay, and so he's not taking the woman for himself. He gives him to Leo and says, hey, you know how you said you've been looking for someone? Well, here's someone who's your actual slave. Do what you want to him. Of course not, do what you want to her. Of course not actually understanding, you know, what Leo's looking for. Because Leo's not some evil bad guy. He is, you know, family with the mafia, but he, like, doesn't really get involved with the stuff that they do. But, of course, he's still a part of the life, and so... But he hasn't done something like this. And he doesn't know if he can. And so when it becomes clear that she does not get any pleasure from being bossed around or ordered to do stuff, he tells her, he's like, okay, well, I'm not interested in actually forcing you. Like, I know you're my captive, but I don't get what I get if you aren't submitting out of, like, willingness, right? Which is a good dom. We like that, of course. But also she can't leave. He can't let her go because... they would need to kill her for what she knows. No promises she make is enough. So he gives her a room in his house. He says, you're going to live here. You're going to be here forever, so get used to it. He brings her cat, which is very sweet of him, but then they're just there until it's Christmas time. Funny enough, this one could work for a holiday book too. His brother, the asshole who, like, gave her to him, he's trying to get his family off his back because he's gay. They know he's gay, but they, you know, and they're not going to shoot him for being gay like some mafias will. But they are going to try to pressure him into, you know, getting married and having babies. And being with a man isn't going to do that for them. And so he throws Leo under the bus and says, hey, Leo actually has a fiance. So now our poor sweet Faith she can't just hide in her room. She has to pretend to be Leo's fiance. And she needs to be willing to let him touch her and kiss her in front of his family. So this captive is now being forced to, like, be there. And his brother is the one who did it. And it's just so, like, it's infuriating in a lot of aspects. I won't lie. It's super frustrating. But I thought this was fascinating. And so this book is really, like, about the negotiations they come to of, like, he says he's willing to let her stay forever, but will he, you know, what if he finds someone that he loves and that woman doesn't want her, like, living there in the attic, you know? So it really becomes like, what is she willing to let him do to her so that he'll want to keep her and have her? So yeah, this was fascinating. It honestly wasn't too dark. So if you are nervous about Kitty Thomas as well, like, this is a good place to start. It's also fascinating to see kind of the beginnings of, like, dark romance and mafia romance too. So yeah, I highly do recommend. I did give it 4 stars because, again, this wasn't romantic. It does have an HEA. So, like, it does have that. Like, they are happy together at the end. But it wasn't very romantic. There wasn't a lot. Like I said, there's not even a lot of sex in this. There's a lot of, like, showing off certain BDSM stuff. But there's not a lot of, like, sex between them ever happening. It's more of, like, agreements made. So, I don't know. If you're someone who's kind of, like, nerdy like me and wants to, like, dive into the nitty gritty of that, I think this is a good one for you. Like, honestly, it was good. It was good. All right, then I'm going to go a little fast through a couple of these because, oh, so long. I reread Demon from the Dark by Kresley Cole. This is book like 9 or 10. And this one is Caro and Malcolm slain. Caro gets forced to go to the demon plane and is supposed to get Malcolm because they want him. He's half demon, half vampire, and the Order wants to dissect him like they've been doing with all the other monsters they have captive. And they are holding her little niece, like, captive, so if she doesn't do it, then they're gonna kill her. So this was wonderful to reread. This was a 4.5 stars, a 2 on the spice scale. Then I won't talk about this book too much, but I was sent Kilometro Cero by James Walter Lee, and this wasn't quite for me. This one comes out in November, and it is a older woman, younger man romance. We have Nick, who his father's business associate, Elizabeth, he, like, falls for her instantly. He meets her at his graduation from college party, and he immediately falls for her, and he goes about getting some time alone with her and trying to get her interested in him. And at first she really resists it, but then she decides she likes him too. And then they have a bit of a, like, they just can't quite get on the same page for this whole story. A few issues that I had with this is, like, I'm okay with like, back and forth, but this didn't feel romantic to me. I didn't understand why they were connected to each other besides him feeling lust for her and then her feeling it back for him. And all of the like back and forth that goes on, by the time they finally end up together, I don't know what pulled these two together. There wasn't even any like scenes of them like getting to know each other. There were scenes of them like negotiating if they could be together. And she's like, you can't, this would messing up to your dad. Like it could do this. Like I didn't see what their connection was. And that was the big issue. The other issue was this hero is fucking someone in every chapter. And it's rarely the heroine. They're not ever like together when he's doing this. So I wouldn't like call it cheating. But I've shared, like, to me, it feels like cheating within the book when I'm told that this couple is going to be together. And then I see them more with other people than with each other. So again, he's not a cheater, although he does sleep with a married woman, not our heroine, as like revenge against whatever. He's like, see, I can get an older woman, and he bangs his mom's friend. And then that woman becomes obsessed with him. So now he's like, oh shit, what did I do? So there's even a point in here where like Elizabeth calls him a man whore, and she's like, what are you doing? And I agreed with her. I thought he was a man whore. And so there were like parts of this that I thought were interesting. I liked some of the locations we went to, but I didn't have any sympathy for Nick. I think part of it too is this wasn't in first person. So we bounced around to different POVs. So again, there was a lot of sex in this book, and not much of it was fulfilling. I was kind of excited because their first sexual encounter between Elizabeth and Nick. And again, like I was okay with the other people he had hooked up with because they were his like fuck buddies. But once for me, this is personal for me, but I know a lot of you agree with me. Once the main couple of the story has been together, physically or otherwise, like I don't want to see them fuck anyone else. And that happened so much in this book. So I was just like, I was out of it. So that's just for me. But yeah, so I ended up, because this was an early copy sent to me, I did give it a 3 for this. Again, there was a lot of sex in it, but there also was like other women drama, and he participates in cheating, whether he's a cheater or not, he participates in it. So not something that I'm super interested in. All right, then I finished a fanfic I had started just a little bit ago, which was called Ragtag, and it was by a fanfic author named CamNZ, so CAMNZ. This was a Lucius and Hermione romance. It was about 55,000 words, so not super long. And this one was Hermione had been raped by Draco during the war. Now Draco's dead, the wife's dead, Narcissus is dead, and it's been like 3.5 years, and Lucius has just gotten out of Azkaban, and he finds out that Hermione has his heir. And so he demands that she have to live with him and the baby. And of course the Ministry of Magic backs him up, even though they're kind of like pissed at him, or, oh, you were a Death Eater. And so Hermione, if she wants to stay with her son, his name is Oscar, she's forced to move into Malfoy Manor too, because his guardianship supersedes hers. She's this 21-year-old young mom, and he could just take her son away that easily. He just could. So this also dealt with like parental rights. I wasn't expecting that in this story. So she's forced to live with him. And then slowly over time, like she realizes that she's going to be around Lucius. I mean, at least for the next, 15 years. And she's not going to really be allowed to be with anybody else. So they should be together. And Lucius, he doesn't want her to like do that, but also who else are they going to be with? So I just didn't quite believe the romance in this one. We spent so much time of her hating him, which again, fair. He like forced her to be there, but also I was like, yeah, but I also want us to be like happy. I'd like that. I'd like us to be happy. So it was tough to get through, but it also wasn't too long. And in this one, like Lucius is very like sad Lucius. He's very sad Lucius. There was also some sick bed caring for him when he gets poisoned at one point. So it wasn't awful, but definitely not my favorite Lucius and Hermione. So I gave it 3.5 stars, and it was a 1.5 on the spice scale. All right, then I finally continued with Grace Hallay. I needed an audiobook the other day. I had read the Mayhem and Mayfair series like over the I started it like 2 years ago, and then I finished it last year. And one of those books is about Ambrose and him meeting his wife. And Ambrose has a bunch of sisters who he'd been trying to care for with the small job that he had. And now he's married to a rich wife, and she, you know, they took in all of the siblings and brought them to the city, and they've been raising them. So this is a few years after this. And the oldest sister, her name is Emma, and she wants to be an investigator like her brother. And so she ends up, well, first it starts with like she overhears a sexual encounter in the garden with Alaric and his mistress, only he's into BDSM. So yeah, there's a bit of BDSM in here. And so he has her tied up, and he's saying, I'm going to do whatever I want to. And the woman's saying, no, no, please, no. And she overhears this. So she's like, oh my God, he's assaulting this woman. And when she tries to like get the woman away from him, the woman's like, no, don't tell anyone about this. It's fine. And so Emma thinks the woman's just saying that because of her reputation, but she honestly is saying that because she likes what he's doing to her. So she has overheard this. Then when that woman wakes up dead next to Alaric, because she's been poisoned, Emma is like, oh my God, he killed her. He killed her. And so she is pointing the finger at him. And Alaric is like, girl, you don't know what was going on. Like, I was not hurting this woman. So eventually, like, to save her from telling everyone he's a murderer, he takes her to a sex club so she can see. Some people like this done to them. That is what I do. So of course that leads to some interesting scenarios. So she ends up wanting to solve who killed this woman and who had poisoned him as well. And she just refuses to stay out of the situation. And that starts to make Alaric kind of fall for her. And so eventually he decides he wants to woo her. And she agrees to be wooed while they're figuring out the investigation. And I really liked how they teamed up, because something that I don't like is when a heroine tries to do things that just because, like, I can do anything a man can do, and then gets herself in dumb situations. And what I loved about this is that Alaric said, he's like, I will bring you to all the things that you can safely do if when I tell you something's too dangerous, you listen. And she agrees, and she sticks to that. And I really liked that. I know it seems simple, but I just hate it, because you're like, oh, they're just trying to protect me. And it's like, so what? So what if the man who wants to marry you would like to protect you? What's the goddamn problem with that, right? So I liked that. This also had a twist about whodunit that I was not expecting. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars because I liked it a lot. It might be one of my favorite Grace Calloways that I've read. Their relationship was really beautiful, and it has just a smidge of BDSM in it. So if you're not a person who wants to read that, I don't think this would bug you. It's mostly used kind of as like the plot point of like why she would think he did this, but also there's a little bit of naughty stuff they do together. So this one did have a little bit of bondage. There was some voyeurism and like orgasm control, so not like tons of stuff. And there is death in this one, loss of a child at some point, and child abuse. All right. And then the final book that I read, which I was so excited to read, was Dark Rapture by Kay Allister. Kay is a viewer of this channel. This is her sophomore book, her second book. The first book, The Devil and I just enjoyed it so much. That one's about a stalker police officer who rescues a woman. It's lovely. This one, much different, very different. So this one is about a woman named Selena is her name. And she has started messing with witchy powers because she is looking for protection. So she had been molested as a child by her uncle, and recently he's been coming around more often again. Now her family knows nothing about this. She's never told them. She didn't want to mess up the family, but she's looking for protection. So she starts getting involved in, as I said, kind of the witchy arts, doing some spells, and she opens a bigger can of worms than she realized, including getting the attention of one of the high princes of hell, I think is what he's called. And he wants to make a deal with her because she has a lot of latent power that she doesn't know about, and he says, you'll bind your soul to mine, and then when you die, you'll be with me forever. So yeah. But the thing is, until she binds herself with him, she's still available for other demons to get as well. So he's trying to give her time to decide, but she needs to decide because otherwise someone else might come and try and take her. So this was a pretty quick story. There was a few bits at the end, like there's a confrontation between him and like some other demons, and I was a bit confused about what was happening. Also how the like paranormal world touches our world, I was also confused with like how we were traveling places and some things, but I thought this was very unique. She does warn, like, this has definitely some blasphemy in it. If you're from the Catholic faith, there is a lot of talk of like God being dead, and like he is the dead gone, and he doesn't answer anyone anymore. So that had been a warning she had given about it. I didn't find really an issue when I read this type of story because I'm a Christian and I'm not worried that God's actually dead. I don't feel that way. I can read a fantasy about it and be okay. But it might upset some people who also, there's some blasphemous things that happen in a church. So just know that. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars, and it is a 3 on the spice scale. And if you'd like to support a small author, definitely check out the links to this and all the other books I mentioned down below. It really does help the channel when you use my affiliate links. Every little click helps out. So yeah, those are all the books that I read this week. We kept it under an hour this time. We'll see. So thank you so much for watching this. Let me know what books you loved this week. Again, if you're interested in checking out some nerdy nuts, I have links down below, as well as links to my Etsy shop and other affiliate partnerships that I have. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.